Today's episode is brought to you by Lawn Culture Australia, an innovative new lawn rewards club launching on June the 1st. You can win things like cylinder mowers, rotary mowers, lawn care prize packs. I'll tell you more about that later in the podcast. All right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden podcast. I'm pleased to have Emma from PlantNet. Emma, how are you going?
Great, thank you for having me on.
We already talked about all the controversial issues off air, so this will be straight and narrow. I don't do anything. Sensible, even, you know. I think this will be episode podcast 101 or 102. Might be the first sensible one we've ever done. So,
wow. 3-digit balling. Here we go.
There you go. So, you're from PlantNet. For people who don't know about PlantNet, and I've asked you on because I think you've got a lot of interesting experience that we haven't quite talked about yet on the podcast. We'll get into that soon. Yeah. But tell us what PlantNet is, for those who don't know, and what your role is there.
Sure, yeah. So PlantNet, it's a company where we've got a parent company. It's called the Australian Nurserymen's Fruit Improvement Company. And what they do is they bring in new varieties of fruit trees into Australia, and they evaluate them. Most of those trees are destined for, your fruit that you see in supermarkets and things like that. Some of the trees aren't good for commercial purposes, but are good for home gardeners. So they will kind of swing through the PlantNet line. So that's sort of why PlantNet was developed. Now it's sort of evolved into this company where we really focus on the dwarf fruit trees. We realize that backyards are getting smaller, and people wanted to grow trees in lots of different ways. So we've got a really big focus on having rootstocks that are genuinely dwarfing beyond what was already available in Australia. So that's sort of us in a nutshell. I'd say, our main products would be the dwarf deciduous fruit trees, so apples, pears, and all of your stone fruits. So if you've got any dwarf stone fruits in your backyard, they will be PlantNet products because we're the only ones that actually have dwarf stone fruits in our range. So yeah, that's a little bit.
So you've got a monopoly. Look at you go,
Over stone fruit, certainly.
Yeah, this slightly little niche of this. And what's your role? Because I want to get into like what makes a fruit tree good for this and that and all that sort of stuff soon. Yeah. But what's your role at the business? Because you do. It sounds like you do a lot of different little things here and there. Quite a diverse job.
Yeah, it is. No 2 days are the same, really. So I'm the marketing coordinator for the company nationally. So, a big part of it is preparing new varieties for their entrance into the marketplace, into retail garden centres or whatever. So that's working with the nurseries for their evaluating the new product, and actually identifying, well, what's good about it. Where can it be sold? That's a huge part of it all. If it can't be sold up in Queensland, then there's no point in even sending it up there. And then also raising that awareness for home gardeners as well about, how to grow fruit trees, what the right ones are for them. So education is a really big part of my job as well. So spend a lot of time on the phone with lots of people explaining to them how to grow things and why things are going wrong.
So what's the biggest problem that people call you with? Because I guess this is why I first reached out to you, because we haven't had a fruit tree specialist on the podcast, but it's something that I think a lot of people, they want to consider, especially, and we'll get into all this, but like the dwarf varieties, because a lot of people go, especially today, like, I don't have a whole lot of space in my backyard, right? But that's exactly what you're breeding them for, and you're thinking about all this sort of stuff. I don't know much about fruit trees, and so I guess this part of this will be an education on that. What's the number one thing that us homeowners are getting wrong about fruit trees that you're getting calls to answer for?
Uh, Generally under fertilizing, uh, and lack of disease maintenance and prevention. There's the deciduous fruit trees, they're so seasonal. I mean, if you think about it, they're winter, they're bare, they're dormant.
Yeah.
Spring, they've got flowers. Summer, they've got young fruits and they've got their leaves. And then autumn, for a lot of them, that's when you'll be harvesting the fruit. So at every single stage, there is something different that they essentially need, and their requirements change. In winter, like your basic disease prevention for your apples and your stone fruit and things like that is a Bordeaux spray, which is copper and lime, and
Yep.
so that prevents like most diseases that home gardeners see in the backyard, and so many people don't do it, and they get frustrated and they contact us, oh my God, the fruit on this is so terrible, and you go, well, that's a preventable disease,
Right.
but you can't prevent it when the fruit's already there. You've got to prevent it before the fruit even starts to
Yeah.
form. Yeah.
And is that an organic spray, technically speaking?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yep. So that
Yeah.
that's kind of why I suggest that one, because, a lot of people want to grow and garden organically in their backyard. So that's a no-brainer go-to. You can mix it up yourself. Yeah. So that is probably the best one to use.
So under fertilizing, being underprepared for the issues that are going to come. So people are being reactionary and they need to be preventative.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You've got to prepare yourself in every way, kind of thing. There's some trees that are a bit easier and less fussy, but others are a bit more particular. And if you miss those windows, then you either don't get fruit or you get pretty scrappy looking fruit. So.
Is there a type of fertilizer? Because you're saying under fertilizing, is there like a one size fits all kind of option, or does it really get like technical and nerdy with what you should and shouldn't be using?
Look, I think that in a home garden setting, there probably is just a one size fits all. You can go and buy fruit and citrus fertilizers. I mean, they're
Hmm.
fine. Um, you can even use general fertilizers when you're growing, your dwarf fruit trees in pots. You don't even need necessarily the fruit and citrus one, just a general one, as long as you're doing it, applying it enough.
Yeah.
Fruit trees are quite hungry, especially, peaches and nectarines. They're a bit hungrier. And if you miss that, and then underfed, then they will start reacting in really weird ways. So their leaves will go yellow. They can drop out of season if they're really, if something's really going wrong.
Right.
Yeah, all sorts of funny things can happen, but stunted growth, and you won't get fruit if you have, if you cause all of that. So yeah.
So the stunted, does that ever affect the flavor? Like if in terms of like if you have a smaller fruit, maybe it's not as big. But I've found sometimes I don't know what's caused bad flavor. Is it because there's not enough nutrients, or what else is happening there?
Yeah, it can be caused by that. Another factor could be sunlight. So sunlight develops the sugars in the fruit. So if your fruit has direct contact with sunlight, um, it's generally a little bit sweeter. So
Yep.
it could be that as well. So if you've got a tree that, maybe it's grown a little bit wild, and it's got a really dense canopy, and a lot of the fruits are shaded, you can get, you'll be able to tell because the fruits aren't very colored, but compared to what they should be.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that can be a little bit, not as sweet. But yeah, general nutrition and plant health in general can both contribute to that. So.
Here's a question that I can't really ask some brands because you always have a bit of a what's the word incentive there. But I'm actually doing a trial right over here with
Mm,
7 different options for fertilizing. Uh, I could turn the. I can't turn the camera to show you, but I've got little pots with on one side a silver beet, on the other side is a petunia. Sorry, a pansy.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing is tiny little, pots, 13, 10 centimeters, something like that. And I've put them in yellow sand. And I'm doing a test where we've got sea salt, power feed, black marvel liquid fertilizer, food to soil, who we've had on the podcast, go-go juice by Nutrog, compost, and nothing, right? Just bare. And
Yeah.
I'm wanting to compare how they all grow, because I kind of, even as someone who's been doing this since I was 15 years old, I don't really know what the differences are. I've got a lot of experience in turf fertilizer and I can know what that does, but this is like a whole different world. I've been going for a few weeks. Some have died, right? I'm not going to give away the results. I'm going to put a video up soon after about a month or so before I leave on this trip. But I'm like, I just thought it was all the same. And it was a little bit of marketing here and there, a little bit of this here and there. But for your own home, Emma, what are you using and what are you recommending fertilizer wise? Or even just soil amendments, composts? Like, what sort of
Yeah.
program would you be using?
Yeah. So we actually did a study on this with PlantNet. I grow all of my fruit trees in pots because I've been renting and things like that. So um, what we found was a general osmocote on
Mm-hmm.
your stone fruits and your apples was actually sufficient, provided that it was, you know, applied regularly. So a little bit more regularly than what the packet instruction
Yep,
recommended.
yep,
Um, but we also use things like your sea salt, and we use trace elements. So I would probably be using them in my own garden. The other things that I use, because I like the idea of organic gardening. I don't
yep,
necessarily follow it all the time. Sometimes I can recognize that a plant needs faster results, and that's
yep,
where that synthetic fertilizers are definitely, superior. I
yep,
mean, you would know that from turf. Um, so I also add in things like rock minerals, and
yep,
I try to add in, some soil conditioners, even into my pots. I will just put in a handful of soil conditioner here and there, and
yep,
it produces really good results. So, diversity is good, but you really need that bread and butter. And I think for myself, I use Osmocote, and it's just a general fertilizer that I also even put on my indoor plants. I mean, people might find that surprising, but I put it on everything. So,
So I know what Osprey is
mm.
from a Bunnings in the Bunnings store, right? Like, you go on the shelf, whatever, they've got them advertised there. Does it really matter? So what it is, it's a type of coating that makes it a controlled release that leaches the fertilizer out. We've talked about this on the podcast at different points. But does it really matter which brand it is? Or for you, are you just saying, like, that's a really simple option that people can get at a readily available store?
I just think it's a simple option. It's everywhere.
Yep.
Um, I think if you had, you know, that ratio of nutrients that, the Osmocote general fertilizer has, that
Yep.
would probably be sufficient. Look, I haven't tested every single fertilizer out there.
Yeah,
There's a
that's the
lot of
problem.
fertilizers, and the shelves just seem to be getting larger and larger. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just go for the one that's always there.
Right, Lawn Culture Australia, I told you about them before, but this is a new and exclusive group launching on June the 1st. What is it involving? Well, if you are a member, you get access to weekly and monthly prizes. These are great things like cylinder mowers, rotary mowers, aerators, dethatchers, and we're talking about reputable brands here, not something random off the internet. But not only do you get access to those prizes, well, obviously you're part of a great community, like-minded people, you also get access to personalized education, events like our Hunter Valley event, where they are the name brand sponsor for the event, and also discounts with partner brands on tools and products and things like that. Another benefit though is that they're giving back to Grassroots Sports Club. You can see more information on their website. If this is something that you're interested in, jump on the link below, sign up. I'm really excited by it. And if nothing else, I'll see you at their event in the Hunter Valley with us. Well, that's the thing. Like, even when I did this liquid trial, I don't have enough space to test them all, right? Because
Yeah.
I've got it under artificial lights, and I've got two nice big artificial lights, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to go spend $1,000 on lights and everything and make a whole thing to test out 40 different options. I was like, what are the? I got the ones that I think would be the most popular, and I got a couple of out there ones. Actually, sorry, there's Charlie Carp as well in that list being used. I forgot. But I got as many out there options as I possibly could to try and compare the different styles, I guess, synthetic and organic and recycled, and then I'm hoping that it kind of covers the rest that are similar, but there's so many options, and
Yeah.
I wonder if that's part of the strategy is just to confuse people to the point where they just buy what's on the picture. Oh, citrus, no, I'll get that, fine,
Yeah. I guess it's all marketing at the end of the day. Well, not entirely, but a lot of different fertilizers they're developed for a purpose. Some of them are developed because they have, this special ingredient in it, and people like that, and that's fine. Put whatever you want in your garden as long as it's helpful and not bad for the environment, I suppose.
What would happen if, let's say, I'm at home and I've got a bag of turf fertilizer, right? Lots of nitrogen, maybe a little bit of iron, but hardly any phosphorus, not much potassium. It's actually the other way around. Hardly any potassium, not much phosphorus. I said no, I got that right. I'm confusing myself. But a lawn mix. If let's say I've got some spare, and I've got my citrus tree, what's going to happen if I throw lawn fertilizer on a citrus tree?
I think you'd find that it would have a huge flush of growth, but it wouldn't actually produce any fruits, or it wouldn't actually assist with the fruit production. Um, and I suppose you'd probably run the risk of overdoing it with the nitrogen as well. So
So, what's the
probably
problem
not the
with
best idea.
what's the problem with using too much nitrogen on a fruit tree?
Uh, Look, I'm probably not the best person to talk about the scientific ways of, all of these things, but yeah,
So if you're saying you're getting a flush of growth, right? So we're going to get a lot of leaf growth, but we're not going to get the fruit growth because I guess the fertilizer, like lawns are leaves, and so it's targeted to growing more leaf, right?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're underfeeding, a lot of us are. We shouldn't be chucking lawn fertilizer on it though to compensate. A general all-purpose Osmocote. Now you said more regularly than what it's recommending. What are you recommending for your stone fruits or whatever that you've got at your house?
Yeah, so about a tablespoon every 3 months or so. I think the packet normally says every 6 months.
Uh,
But yeah, so you sort of, yeah, a tablespoon for every few months is fine.
yeah. See, that's still that's not much, and it's not very often still. So it's super low maintenance, really.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, you can add urea and potash, and that would help the plants along, especially for, your peaches and nectarines, again, pretty hungry kind of plants.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's general idea.
Do you get a lot of questions from people who have, or like, I'm sure you do from time to time, but how often is it the case that someone's planted the entirely wrong type of fruit in entirely the wrong spot in entirely the wrong climate, and then they come back to you and they're like, "What $3 product can I use to fix this problem?"
Yeah, maybe once every 2 weeks. People are really persistent,
Uh,
and they just want to plant what they cannot grow. I mean,
yep.
I talk to my boss about this all the time, and what he says about it is so true. If you don't see any commercial farms of it in your area, it's probably not going to grow very well in your area.
Ah,
So,
true.
I'm in the Brisbane area and I don't see any cherry trees growing around here. So,
Yeah. Your dog's waking up in the background.
yeah, just thought I'd
Yeah.
give him a minute.
So that's a good point. If it's not growing where you are, then I guess they've already done all the maths and the calculations on it, right? And they're trying to, and if it's not going to work there, why would you try?
Well, all deciduous fruit trees have general chill units. So, you know, cherries, apricots, really high. So, you know, they're not going to grow in, a coastal area in northern New South Wales.
Yeah,
They're just
right.
not. They need so how chill generally works is that it's the amount of hours under 7 degrees Celsius and it kind of accumulates. So I think of it like a bank. So every hour under 7 degrees, which is normally at night in winter,
Hmm.
there's a deposit put into your bank, your tree's bank. Um, but then you have chill reversal as well. And so that happens when, during winter, when the plant is still dormant, you get an hour of temperature over 17, roughly 17 degrees Celsius. So for every hour over that temperature, you will get some chill units taken out of your tree bank. So even if you calculated, your chill units in your area, so Brisbane, for example, is 300 ish, depending on the year. However, that wouldn't generally get achieved very often because the daytime temperatures are so warm in winter. So, even if you've got a tree that, it's through various experimental observations, it's been found that it has 300 chill hours that it needs to set fruit. You might
Right.
not you might not actually still get fruit because you've still had that warm weather during the day that's completely taken those chill units sort of out of the tree, if you like. So it's a bit hypothetical and maybe hard to understand, but yeah, that's kind of how it works.
No, I think I
So
understand the concept, maybe not as deeply as someone who works in the industry, but like, so what you're saying is essentially there's a certain amount of cold that is needed to trigger the fruit to start, right? And if
yeah,
your area doesn't get cold enough, it's not going to sort of flick that switch in the plant to say start making fruit.
exactly. And it does also need that in spring, it needs to warm up. So,
Right.
if they don't have that warmth, they'll stay dormant for a little bit longer. So that can happen, in the cooler areas of Australia. So, I don't know, Jindabyne. If it doesn't warm up for until maybe October, then the trees may come out of dormancy really late. So then you've got some setbacks in your timing of fruit production as well.
My father-in-law, he's got some apricots in his. So he's down in Esperance, which is like 7 hours from Perth, like
Hmm.
right on the south coast of WA, about as south as you can get in WA. And he has a little orchard, a lot of stone fruit because it does get cold being so far south. And his apricots are the best apricots that I've ever had. Right, you pick
Yeah,
them straight off the tree. They're juicy. You can just
yeah.
tear them in half with your hand, like beautiful, beautiful apricots. Right? Do you think that has something to do then with the fact that it's in the right type of climate?
Yeah, absolutely. But uh, apricots off the tree are almost always going to taste better than the apricots you buy in the shops anyway. They're sun-kissed, and you're eating them completely fresh. They haven't been picked early,
Yeah,
for storage or anything like that. I mean, you're
yeah.
kind of getting creme de la creme of the fruit. Doesn't matter where you are, as long as there's fruit on the tree, it's obviously in the right climate for the fruit to develop. So yeah.
Well, I've had fruit off the tree in other areas that didn't taste so good. So I'm wondering, like, is it because there isn't enough? What's the word I'm looking for? There isn't enough of those cold days up here in Perth to, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to work out, like, is the flavor coming from uh, climate? Is it coming from nutrition? Because I guess for a lot of homeowners, right, like the truth is that a full apricot tree is going to make once it's mature, it's going to make way more apricots than you're going to want to eat, right? Like
Yeah,
even when they're beautiful, you're going to get sick of them, right?
totally. Yeah,
So some people wouldn't care so much about creating more fruit; they're just trying to create better fruit,
good
and
fruit. Yeah.
yeah, good fruit. And is it the case that if you've had a tree for a couple of years and it's just not that tasty, it might just be in the wrong spot, and there's not much you can do about it?
See, I think it goes back to what we were talking about. There's so many different factors. I think if it's in the wrong, climatic spot, you just wouldn't see any fruit. They would, the flowers wouldn't come at the right time. Like, because it's so
Yeah.
timing based, it just wouldn't quite achieve the chill hours to even produce flowers. And if you don't have flowers, you don't have fruit. So, it's sort of more to do with the actual health of the tree, and also the age of the tree can make a difference as well. So older trees in some varieties can taste better. But most of the trees that we grow now, they're all quite modern.
Hmm.
There's still some heritage ones that linger, which linger because they're amazing. Um, but the ones that we grow now are pretty consistent over their lifetime. So, in saying that, some trees just take longer to actually start fruiting. So your apricots and your
Right.
cherries, maybe 4 or 5 years before
Yep.
they actually produce, a decent sized crop.
Recently, I made a small business course called the Aussie Green Biz Mastery Course. It's for people who are starting out in the industry or who have been in maybe for a year or two and they're really good at the gardening side, but they struggle on the business side. There's 47 lessons that cover everything from how to get great clients to how to work out your pricing, how to work out a system that's efficient, and ultimately set up a business that is going to be successful. Essentially, what I did is I thought about myself as a 19-year-old. I thought, looking back when I started my business, what would I tell my 19-year-old self to help him avoid all the stupid mistakes that I ended up making and have success in a much quicker time frame? If you know somebody who wants to start a business, it's made for them. If you're struggling in your business, you love the industry, and you want a successful business, this is made for you. We recently added the option as well to break down the payment over 4 months, so it makes it a little bit more affordable for those who are just starting out. The course is called the Aussie Green Biz Mastery Course. For more information, follow the link. If you're wanting to upgrade your lawn care this season, jump on today's sponsor, the Lawn Shed. Lawn Shed stock a full range of everything you need for great lawn care, from fertilizers to wetting agents to soil amendments to pre-emergent, post-emergent, plant growth regulators, everything that you could need. Their products are actually the products used by stadiums across the country. I know, I've seen them in the sheds there when I've done tours. My opinion has always been that if you're going to charge for a service, use the best quality stuff you can get. So jump on the Lawn Shed today, sign up for a trade account, and tell them that you heard about their services through the podcast. Thank you so much for supporting Lawn Shed. If I'm going across the country, right, there's obviously so many different climatic zones. Is there certain trees that come to mind straight away for places like, let's say, someone calls you from Melbourne and they go, "What should I get?" And I don't care what fruit it is, I don't care anything. I just want a fruit tree. Is there something that comes to mind straight away and you're like, yeah, Melbourne's this, Sydney's that, Adelaide's this, Darwin's that, this is the kind of stuff? Or is it still like, it really depends. What part of Melbourne are you in? What part of, Sydney are you in? Like, is it that simple that we can just boil it down? I'm in this city, I should grow this thing.
Uh, I'd say Melbourne's probably not the best example because you can grow most deciduous fruit trees there. So,
Right.
but what I would say to most people calling me up and just saying, I just want to grow, a fruit tree. And if they've never done it before, my go-to suggestion is usually apples. They're just
All
quite
right.
easy. They're easy to prune. They make sense. They're intuitive.
Hmm.
They do need pollination partners though. So some people do squirm a little bit about having to have two trees. But,
Okay.
if you only want one tree, then and you want something that's really easy, go for a lemon tree.
Yeah. Well, tell me about pollination partners. So let's say we're talking to someone who's never explored this subject before, and they're starting out for the first time. What do you even mean by that?
So a lot of people think that you just need two trees, like random apple trees or two of the same trees, but you actually need two um, compatible trees of the same species, I suppose, um, to for the flowers, sorry, for the bees to go and pollinate the flowers of both and share the pollen between them. Um, so, for example, like apples, like what we do, pink lady, a Pinkerbell. So that's our dwarf, pink lady.
Yep.
Um, Pink lady and Granny Smith are pollination partners, so they're
Oh,
compatible with
right.
each other, and they fruit at slightly different times as well. So it's not necessarily when they fruit, it's more to do with their flower timing overlapping. You
Yeah.
can get some, with apples, staying with them as an example, apples, you can also pollinate them with crab apples. So that's a good way to kind of boost the pollination of your fruit trees like that. So
So one tree. So how is it the case that in some plants one tree is enough to pollinate itself, and in other plants you need a partner?
they're just self-compatible. So, uh, or I suppose a better way to put it is that the ones that require cross-pollination are self-sterile. So their, sex organs can't um, interact with each other. So they can't,
Right.
whether it be by timing, maybe one organ's open at night or whatever. Um,
Uh,
yeah, so that they and it's an evolutionary uh, thing to not be compatible with yourself to increase the genetic diversity of your
mhm.
fruit that you produce. So just talking about that, it's also probably good to mention that for a lot of fruit trees, seedlings don't actually produce fruit that's true to the parent type because, if they've needed cross-pollination, then they are a mixture of two different tree varieties.
Right. So what you're saying is, like, say I got a pink lady,
Yep,
right, and then we had the Granny Smith next door.
yep,
The actual fruit that grows from that will be of the tree it's from, right? But the seed that comes from that, if you grew something from that seed that was pollinated between the Granny Smith and the pink lady, it would be a pink granny lady. Is that kind of what it would be?
Yeah, it would be a mixture of the parents. So it would, display traits from both of the parents, the individual trees. Um, Sorry,
You've got your dog.
took him up for a
We've got a new
second.
guest on the podcast. We can
Yeah,
hear it
Mac.
drinking water in the background.
Sorry.
Mac, that's all right.
Yeah.
No problems at all. You bought this puppy on the weekend, and now you've got to live with your life choices, I guess.
Yeah, I thought, I'd try to simulate being a parent for a little bit, and he's doing a good job. He's very needy.
He's cute though. Everyone who's listening on Spotify is want to come jump across on YouTube just to watch this now.
Yeah,
So back to what we're talking about with cross pollination. So if I get a seedling that's growing from seed from those plants, it's not true to type because it's like human beings, a little bit of mum, a little bit of dad. The child is not an exact clone of one of the parents, right?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So how do you get your plants be exact clones? And can you say that this is a dwarf pink lady, exactly as the others? How do you grow them?
So you'll be propagating from or we graft. So we use a bud from the parent tree, which will be a
Hmm.
pink lady, and we graft it onto a rootstock. So that ensures that the bud that will then develop into the tree that you then pick your fruit from, it will ensure that it's the exact same as what we know to be a pink lady.
All right, so I would see grafting typically as basic. Well, in essence, as people would just cut a suitable rootstock for a plant, and it's still an apple. It's not a random other plant, but say an apple rootstock, and then they cut the bud that you talked about before, and they pretty much just stick them together. Is there more to that process, or is that pretty much what it is?
That is pretty much what it is. I mean, there's a lot more to it in that, the rootstocks have been developed for years and years and have, their own specific purposes of why they're
Hmm.
being used.
Hmm.
I mean, in our case, a lot of the rootstocks that we're using are the dwarfing ones. Um, but yeah, essentially, you choose a rootstock based on what you want that product to be and what works for your conditions. And then you graft on something that will sell. So, from our perspective, anyway. So, we know that a lot of people keep going back to it, but pink lady apples, for
Yeah.
example. So you will get, a variety with good quality eating apples. It's really easy to grow. And as long as you've got a rootstock that's easy for most people to grow in most conditions, then you've really got a winner. So that's
Right.
essentially why we kind of graft. Um, a lot. It's also a lot faster to get fruit from a grafted tree in some ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so it turns out a bit of a better product, bit more reliable. We know that it has good anchorage. So yeah, a lot of different factors as to why we graft and what we do, but yeah, that's the general gist of it.
So, what with the dwarf variety? So you're saying the root? It sounded like you were saying the root stock can determine the size of the plant. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So a
Wow.
lot of the rootstocks that we use determine the ultimate size of the mature tree. Um, there are varieties that they are natural dwarfs. So a natural dwarf isn't on uh, a dwarfing rootstock. It
Yeah.
it's in the name. It's naturally dwarfing itself. So if you look at one of those plants and compare it to a tree that's on a dwarfing rootstock, you'll see the inter interstem between two buds is really
Hmm.
short
Hmm.
compared to, a full-sized variety on a dwarfing rootstock. So you can clearly tell the difference between them.
Do people ever use a plant growth regulator on fruit trees to make them grow smaller?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. 'Cause I was wondering that because we use it on like a lot of turf managers. We use it on turf to make it
Yeah.
less maintenance. A lot of people use it on hedges to make it less maintenance. Um, but I guess the problem with that is then you would only have a dwarf tree as long as you were applying the product, and as soon as you forgot to apply the product, then you're in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, the main historical size restricting process people have performed with fruit trees is pruning. So, not necessarily anything that I know of that you can use to actually limit or reduce that growth. I'm sure if you poured some concrete in the soil or something, you might reduce the growth, but yeah,
There's some way
you
of
know,
doing it, yeah.
yeah.
So what we were asking before we went down this rabbit hole of grafting and dwarf varieties and stuff like that, and I found it really interesting that I thought it would be the top of whatever you're grafting on, not the roots that would have
Mm,
dwarfing what was tendencies. But let's go back to what we're talking about. We said Melbourne, you can pretty much grow anything, and apples are really great starter fruits. Lemons, if you only want one variety.
mm.
Is there anything else that like where you just go, look, if I was in this area, this would be a great thing to grow. If I was in this area, this would be a great thing to grow. Because we got people all around the country, and I know a lot of them, obviously, if they're listening, especially this far into the podcast, they're super keen to start growing something. So,
Mm.
is there anything that comes to mind? Let's say, oh, let me give you three options to make it a little bit easier for you. Let's say you have a really dry area like what we have in Perth or maybe Adelaide, a really wet area like what you would have in, or humid wet area like in Brisbane, and then maybe let's just go Sydney, like western suburbs of Sydney. Are there different plants like that suit those areas better?
I'd say there's varieties that suit each area, and when you're talking about the deciduous fruit trees. So, all right, so Brisbane, I would be using anything low chill. So be looking for a low chill peach or nectarine. That would be a really easy plant to grow in Brisbane. Um, Sydney, I mean, I've seen gardeners have really good success with some of the apricot varieties.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if I lived in Sydney, that's what I would be growing. I can't grow them where I live, so that's what I'd be doing. Perth, I reckon plums would be fun to try in Perth. There's some lower chilling varieties that would be quite successful, so I think that's um, Golf Ruby and Sun Golf. Those two
Yeah,
varieties would probably be good for Perth area. So I'd
yeah.
be trying them.
Just see how they go. We've got Adelaide as well for the plums. I mean, doesn't Adelaide do a lot of cherries, or South Australia do a lot of cherries? Am I mistaken in thinking that?
No, so there's sort of you know, I mean they've got a pretty high chilling areas. I think Adelaide would have a lot of almonds, or that
Mm-hmm.
sort of South Australian region does a lot of almonds. Kind of got that really hot, dry that almonds like.
I guess you can just go back to your advice before saying just look around what's actually being grown commercially in your area and
Totally,
see.
yeah.
Yeah. So if you're in the Sahara Desert, you don't have much options really.
No, no, you grow some sand.
Yeah. We can do that in Perth too. Don't you worry.
Yeah,
It's not very good for eating though.
yeah.
Uh, so I guess we've covered the fruit trees. I mean, you can talk about it for years, right? But then I guess it
Mm.
gets to the point where people really should just probably email you questions. Um,
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where everything is it's so specific, even to,
yeah.
your backyard. Like people have microclimates in their yards that allow them to, Melbourne Melbourne people have been growing subtropical fruits, in little microclimates in their
Yeah.
backyards. There's a lot of possibilities for anyone out there. It's kind of about being a bit calculating in what you choose to grow. So, I might, like I keep saying, I'm only going to be growing low chill varieties of, traditional fruits. But I know I could probably put in, a custard apple and have pretty good success with that. Because, as I say, it's growing about 20 minutes away from my house, in these
Mm-hmm.
big orchards and things like that. So, there are options, but you have to do a little bit more research to find out if the option that you're making is kind of a silly decision, like,
Yeah.
an apricot in Brisbane, or maybe, like I know this variety does well for, someone a few blocks down. So, why don't I try that one out? That's an informed decision that you would probably have success with.
Well, I've got a silly choice that I've made that I want your evaluation on. Are you ready? I'm going to turn the camera. Okay. So if I go over here and I turn it up, if I can just do that for a second. Oh, you can't see it on this angle, but around here, hiding behind that plant there, is, believe it or not, a banana, a Cavendish banana, which I
Okay.
bought when it was 14. You can see there's a light of artificial light and a skylight there. It's directly underneath artificial light and the
Mm.
skylight. And my goal is I want to get a fruit off it because I saw it I saw it at the shop and I was like, I got to try. Even though, like, logically, this is a dumb idea. Come on, like, I'm interested. I want to see. As a fruit tree person, I know that stone fruit's more the thing, but with bananas, do you think I got a chance, or do you think I'm just being
No,
silly?
I don't think so. I mean, bananas are trending hugely as indoor plants in Europe and America at the moment. And
Yeah,
I am yet to see someone, posting, oh my God, my indoor banana plant, has fruit
has
on it.
fruit. Yes,
Yeah, yet to see it,
stuff has
I'll
he's
keep my
destroyed all
fingers
my
crossed
hopes
for
and
you though.
dreams.
No,
Can't
I'll
believe
keep
you.
my fingers crossed.
I've talked about it before. It was more like because I got it from the wholesaler, and they're not expensive when they're like in a 14 centimeter pot. I don't know how
Yeah.
much I paid for it, but like $10 or something, and you just like, I don't know, I got a spot. I'm just gonna try, and
Yeah.
there's because I don't know. My hope is that because there is the skylight directly above it, it's growing. It'll get leaves, and I never doubted that. But like, yeah, the ability to produce fruit is the challenge there. But I don't know, in 5 years' time, if I get some little stunted size of my pinky finger, like
Hey,
banana,
that's fruit.
exactly, I won.
Even if you
So
get even if you get a flower, that would be good.
I'd love. I'm actually the frangipani next to it. I'm not going to change my camera back again because now I'm annoyed at my angle. But the frangipani that's up there, that's also what I'm trying to. I'm wanting my frangipani to flower. It hasn't yet. It's been up there for
That's your
almost a
other
year.
experiment, is it?
Yeah, I mean the leaves are beautiful. It
Yeah.
likes the spot, but yeah, I guess that's the thing about like people would do stuff like that, and I guess it's like it's got leaves on it. What's wrong with it? Well, yeah, too much
Yeah.
shade or too cold or whatever.
Yeah. I'm actually experimenting at the moment with a tree from our range that I know won't do well here. Because I wanted to have that experience of, well, what actually happens when my customers are,
Yeah,
what are they seeing when they're calling me saying, oh, I've never seen any fruit or whatever, and it's an ornamental plant. It's one of our flowering peaches. So it does produce fruit, but it's not edible. But you just get nothing from it. There's no flowers, there's nothing. You know,
uh,
it instead of, having that cold to initiate the flowers in springtime, it just starts leafing out and it might throw out one or two flowers, but for an ornamental flowering peach, it's pretty pathetic.
now you've got in a pot, right? Though,
Yes.
how big is it?
Well, it's on our dwarfing rootstock, so it's probably about knee height, so about 1.5 meters.
Okay, here's a question for you. If you bought a second-hand fridge or Facebook Marketplace, right? Bear with me. Do you think you could put your tree in a fridge for a certain amount of period of time, right? Obviously, you'd have to move it out for light, but let's say every night you put it in a fridge, right? Could you artificially make it fruit in a climate that doesn't suit it?
Yeah, technically. And you wouldn't need to
Sick.
bring it
Let's
out
do it.
for
That's the next challenge we're doing. I'll
you
end the
wouldn't need to
podcast now. I'm
necessarily bring
getting
it
one.
out. You
Oh,
wouldn't
in
necessarily bring
winter
it, yeah, because it's in
because it's
winter, so
dormant. It hasn't got leaves
exactly.
anyway. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know that, there's other factors like, probably not for you because you're in Perth, but humidity and things like that will also affect, plant
We don't even know
when
what
it's,
humidity is.
yeah,
I've
I
forgotten.
didn't think so.
No.
Your skin's looking
I,
quite dry, by the way.
thanks. Hey, that's an insult. No, we've actually had to have some rain, and it was funny. Like I wasn't complaining, but like the day of our event, it was raining, and I'm like, we haven't had rain in months. And of course, I organised something, but look, I organised it in June, so whatever. But so I could. I mean, it'd be the most expensive fruit ever. You go spend what you $50 on a tree, and then $200 on some secondhand fridge you got from some,
Yeah.
garage sale somewhere,
Yeah.
which has got dents in it and scratches and everything, and you chuck it out the back. And I don't know how much it costs to run a fridge a day, but how
Yeah.
long do you think I'd have to keep it in the fridge to
All
to
of
make it
winter.
work? So I've got to have it in the fridge for the entirety of winter, right?
Yeah,
One
that
one
if
tree.
I were you and I was experimenting and I was going that hard, that's what I'd do. I just may as
Okay,
well leave it in there, see what
okay.
happens.
What temperature? Below 7 degrees. Is 4 degrees
Yeah,
standard fridge temperature? Okay, sweet. Okay, we got
sure.
it in the
Yeah,
fridge.
go for it.
Right, it has to be a dwarf variety, right? And I've got to find one of those fridges that doesn't have a freezer on top. You know what I mean? I've got to have it tall
Yeah,
enough,
just a
right?
huge, yeah, just a really big
Sh-
fridge.
Shove all the branches in there, and then what? September, bring it out.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
bring it out, put it back
And
out
then
again.
see what happens watering it. Oh, you might want to keep the roots at least a little bit moist as well, so you don't want them to completely dry out. I mean, if it's in a
Okay,
pot, shouldn't be too much of a problem, but yeah,
so I got
maybe every few
maybe.
weeks water it.
All right, I got to open it every few weeks, right? Keep my fertilizer up in the fridge. I don't care about fertilizer anymore in the
Don't
fridge.
care about it. No.
Okay, fine. Doesn't need anything. It's having its nap, and then take it out in September, and we can grow apricots in Darwin. Is that what we're getting at?
Yeah, solved, sorted. That's as easy as that. Yeah.
And then how many apricots are you going to get on a dwarf tree? Uh,
Uh, in Darwin, I don't like to
well,
answer that question.
I know, but what I'm getting at is we spent like hundreds of dollars on
Yeah,
everything to get it all
yeah,
working, and we get our 10 fruit at the end of the
yeah,
season, or
yeah,
let's say 20 fruit, and we spent $400. It's
yeah.
$20 per fruit
Which you could have just like, bought the fruit from the supermarket for about
at the
$20.
shop.
But hey, you don't get to
But
experiment.
you found my next viral video idea, though. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh man, that's. I mean, and I love how people do that stuff on the internet. That's what's fun about the internet. Somebody
Yeah,
is not dumb enough, but curious enough to try
yeah,
something,
yeah,
and is willing to waste a couple $100. Come
yeah.
on, let's do it. As a kid,
Well,
yeah. You go.
we had a guy that called us up one time and he asked me, oh, can I grow fruit trees hydroponically? And
Mm,
I said, well, yeah, theoretically you can grow anything hydroponically, but you've got so many different factors to consider when you're talking about a fruit tree hydroponically. I mean, you know, all of the seasonal variation of how much, what
yeah.
nutrients they need in order to fruit at certain times and things like that. I kind of thought to myself, why would you bother? And I still think about that guy. I hope that he's done it. And if he hears this, can you let me know how it's going? Because I am really curious to know, can a backyard gardener who's really into
Yeah.
hydroponics grow a fruit tree in it? I'm sure someone's probably going to say in the comments, yes, absolutely. I've been doing it for years.
That would be sweet. Comment if you have. I
Yeah,
wonder if
please
you'd
tell
have
us.
to have some sort of clamp on the trunk to keep it upright, though, right? Because
Yeah,
you
yeah. Well, I
you
mean, you wouldn't want it
typically
going too far in the water.
because some plants, like let's go back to your veggies that were growing like silver beet over here or something like that. Yeah, like the roots, they're not very heavy plants and they're not very tall plants. They're very leafy, and
Yeah,
I've seen those grown in hydroponics all the time.
yeah, yeah.
And then I've seen tomatoes grown in hydroponics, but they're growing on a vine. That's what holds them up. How would
Mm.
you grow a fruit tree? Hmm. Maybe you'd have to expelliar it.
Hey, you've
That
got several different experiments to work on
you,
now.
I do. I'm going to I'm going to Google this hydroponic fruit tree. Interesting. Look, I'm not. I'm going. I'll chat this on the screen, and we can see. We can peruse together what we're looking at here. Well, that's it. There is a okay. There's a hydroponic lemon, and it looks like the guy's put. If I zoom in here, if you can see that, looks like he's shoved some lemon cuttings through some sort of I don't know lid that's holding them in a wet pot.
Yeah. It kind of looks like polystyrene.
Yeah, you're probably right there. And then there's hydroponic strawberries. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's not a tree. Bloody Google.
No.
And what's this? Hydroponic trees. Oh, look, they. I don't know.
This
That looks
this
like something. I'll click visit on that. Um, okay, that looks like a hydroponic setup, but
yeah.
they're in pots. And is that rocks,
Kind of looks like
mulch?
leca maybe. Which I suppose, that's still hydroponic. It's just got something to hold the moisture and the nutrients and maybe hold the
But what
roots together.
what tree is that? What even is that?
It
That
kind of looks like
doesn't
a
look.
vine.
It does. I again.
I don't think that's a
No,
tree.
it
No, we've
is.
been
It is
gypped.
a vine.
We've been
Look at that.
gypped.
It's
Yeah.
wrapping around something.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is. Is that a kiwi fruit? I don't know.
No, it looks like a melon.
It's something like that. Yeah, you might be right. That might be like a honeydew melon or a rock melon when they're
Yeah.
very small.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not a tree.
No. I think we've
We've
been
been
let
lied
down.
to. We have.
Yeah.
That is absolute rubbish.
Yeah. I
Um,
think you need to rectify this and do an experiment and post the photos so that Google has something real to work off.
Mate, I think that needs to be part of your marketing budget. Come on. This
Well,
is
you got a good point.
Emma's YouTube for
Yeah.
PlantNet. How can you grow hydroponically? I have a feeling that if I do it, like I will do something. I don't know. I'll do it wrong, and then everyone in the comments will roast me
Yeah,
for it, and it'll be I
me
will be
too.
the factor. No, you got way more chance of success than I do, right?
Yeah, but I'm slack, I like I like growing things, but on my terms. If it's not a survivor, it's not for me.
You're right. To be honest, you probably speak for most home
Yeah.
enthusiasts. I love plants, but only if they can handle my abusive tendencies towards them.
Well, yeah.
Have you seen that meme where it's like how my plants look at me when I'm putting water in the coffee machine? It's like
Yeah,
somebody on death's door, and they're
yeah,
like, "What are you
completely
doing?"
dried out. Yeah.
Yeah. Every morning, I'm putting water in every other thing in my
Yeah.
house except for the poor philodendron that's in the corner being
Yeah.
absolutely abused. I'm gonna keep googling this because I doubt it. Now they look like tomatoes or something. Oh, I've stuffed up my zooming there. Oh, I've done something stupid. What have I done? Here we go. Yeah, they're tomatoes. I've seen tomatoes hydroponically. I'm not
Yeah.
impressed. And that's not a tree, Google. I don't know. I don't know. Back to berries, of course. You got to try this. Oh, that looks good. It's berries or some
That's
sort.
a Oh, it looked like a
It's a
tower for those hydroponic towers as well. Sort of looked like one of them.
yeah. Tell us about. I'm going to Google this. I'm going to spell it wrong. But do you expalia? How do I spell this?
ESP.
X-E-S. Oh, okay. So it's there. We
ESP.
go. I was
Yeah.
doing X
Yeah,
E
there you go.
X. So these kind of things, I've only ever done this with in my own life with a uh, olive. And what it is for people who are not looking is who are just listening, expelling. Oh, they give me an ad. I don't want an ad. X off that. What it is basically people. You have a guide, and you can grow your tree against a fence or against a wall with wire, and you can shape it into nice, beautiful straight lines. And you might think that's just a ornamental thing that people do, but they still grow fruit, right?
Yeah, totally.
Have you ever been tempted to do this?
Not really. Not in my own circumstances, to be honest. My
Yeah,
parents do have pretty good espalier apples, and I can really see the merit of them. I mean, they still produce a lot of fruit, you know,
yeah,
and for something that takes up arguably a two-dimensional space and looks pretty cool as well, I
yeah.
mean, it is pretty cool, especially that pear. If I could
Yep.
grow pears, I mean, I know there's a couple of varieties I could grow, but they're not our dwarf, varieties.
Yeah, right.
Um, I would be doing pears. I'd be doing something interesting. A lot of people espalier apples, and it's because
Hmm.
they're really easy to do that. But there's something magic about, seeing a pear dangling off, a two-dimensional tree. It's very cool.
Vasily, who we've had on, I don't know if you've ever seen his content before.
Yeah.
He's got espaliered citrus. I'm going to play this video. You're not going to be able to hear it. I'll keep it on mute then. But if I can fast forward, I love what he's done here. I need the zoom out method here. But yeah, the angle's not as good as what I would like. But you can see he's got what looks like an old fence post.
Mm,
And so it's kind of like a vine growing across, making a beautiful little fence.
yeah.
I love Vasily. We've had him on. It was one of my favorite episodes, and he
Yeah,
knows
he's
so much
cool.
stuff about all this sort of
Yeah.
stuff. And I didn't even know that was possible. I'd never seen anybody do it with citrus before, and then he's got
Yeah.
like 5 of them, and he's just showing off. I reckon. No,
It was
he's doing it to help people. But
Phil Dudman posted about, he only ever
oh yeah,
grows his citrus espalier. I saw that the other day. A huge mandarin tree. And I mean,
really?
citrus are really big trees, the full size ones. They're 6 meters. That's a huge tree for a backyard. So if you can condense it to a flat space, makes the management a lot easier.
I can't believe I've never seen it because I follow him too. And yeah, I mean, there we go. 3 years ago, he's posting about his espaliered citrus.
Yeah, made a video about it the other day as well. So
There we go, on Instagram or something probably. But
Instagram, yeah, I think.
yeah, I mean, people do. There's so many cool things. Oh, there we go. 1 week ago, yeah, he did. Here we go. We can put it on.
I'm all
I'm
over
getting
it.
better. You are. You know stuff. That's why we got you on. And of course, my internet's now frozen. It doesn't got enough bandwidth to do this. Oh no, here we go. I think this sort of stuff is really cool in that there's so many options for fruit trees. Like if you have a
Yeah,
very narrow spot, yeah, you can go for it. And
there's
there's a lot of
other,
mandarins. Mandarins are some of my favorites.
yeah. I love winter because it's mandarin season. They're my favorite fruit. It's
Yeah.
easy. There's other ways that, you don't just need a dwarf or a spalliard tree. Um, Columnar trees are another good option for,
How do I
your
spell
narrow
that?
spaces. Well, column, AR.
You're still, you're still.
I'm testing you
I'm not
still.
great at spelling. Yeah, I know I spelt it wrong, but I'm trusting Google. There we go. There, see, it fixed it for me. I'm the sort of guy
Perfect.
I just type words and then
Yeah.
just if
And then
the
hope that
autocorrect
Google.
is not fixing me,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Look, I mean, you've got your pencil pines and you've got I don't know.
Yes.
There's some grainy photos there, Google. Thanks for fixing my spelling, but I'm disappointed with the photo quality that you've given me. So I should
Look
type in
up,
fruit tree,
yeah, look up columnar apple tree.
apple tree. Okay.
Mm. Because they are very cool. When they flower, they're very
Oh
cool too.
wow, is that
Yeah.
what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try. I have to describe this. Is there a better quality photo that they've got here? No, they're all rubbish.
So
That might be the.
the best
I'm
way to
trying to.
describe it, I'd say, is that all of the branches that grow from the main leading branch go directly upwards. So it produces a very tight tree.
Yeah, that's cool. That is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that would look really cool in a group. You plant a whole bunch, in a circle patch kind of thing, and let them all, when they flower, they're all just like these tridents of flowers. And when they fruit, I mean, how amazing would that look? Or on a fence line or something, that there's really cool ways to use
Yeah.
all of these columnar trees. And there's so many now.
Do you think if you planted that, so the photo that we've got here, people, like if I could describe it, it'd be like there's a stake, and then there's basically like a plant that is no wider than a foot, and there's what, a dozen apples off this plant, and it's probably 1.2 meters tall. It's like that to me. Give me three of those, a couple
Yeah,
more, like an espaliered mandarin, and I don't know, a few other options, maybe one nectarine or something. And okay, I need something. I think a little bit more for my summer growth, but you've got a variety of fruit trees that could sustain a small, harvest that you wanted as a personal use
yeah,
in what you could fit in a courtyard.
yeah. Without giving you that fruit glut that can happen when you have,
Yeah,
a full-size tree. Even look, even sometimes the dwarf trees, there's only so many of one kind of fruit that you can eat, in a
yeah,
way.
yeah.
That's sort of really good from that perspective.
I used to have a very uh, happy orange tree at the last property I was at, and basically um, I got too many oranges off it, and it was on the fence line out the front. We had this sort of waist high fence, and people would take them from outside the. And I didn't care from outside the fence line, but on our side, you'd still have, I don't know,
Oh, buckets.
100.
Yeah,
Like I don't know more huge, and it was a very mature tree. It
yeah,
was probably, I'd say it'd be close to. It was over gutter height, and what's gutter is 2.73 meters or something like that. So it was
yeah,
a little bit more than 3 meters.
yeah,
And yeah, you try and give away these oranges, and you can somewhat successfully give a dozen away at
yeah.
maybe. I took 27, I think, once down to a family get together, just like, here you go, oranges.
Please take them.
It got to a
Make
point where,
marmalade.
yeah, I don't know, throw them at your enemies. I don't care. I just need to get
Yeah,
them out of my house.
yeah.
And we would get to a point where, because, then they start rotting on the floor, and then you start
Mm,
getting the bad smell. And
yeah,
we, every now and then, would play cricket with our oranges, just for the fun of just smashing them.
yeah,
Because, I mean, it's like everyone's getting upset about food waste, but I've tried, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah.
he must be perfuming the yard with this beautiful orange smell whilst
I
getting
can
a
imagine
sticky
it
cricket bat.
would have looked pretty cool too. You sort of smash it and it like Fruit Ninja style.
Exactly, yeah, in slow
Mm,
motion. And I think people don't really realize that, because they get impatient at the start, where
yeah,
they're like, I want fruit. And it's like you said, it can be years sometimes before you get them.
yeah,
And then once you have your mature tree, you're like, I'm sick of oranges now.
yeah, yeah,
I don't want to see
yeah.
another one. You know,
Or oh, I actually don't like how this one tastes. What a shame.
it took 7 years.
Yeah,
So what is the okay, this is subjective, but if you're picking your plants from your stock that you guys do, what's the best tasting stuff out there? Whilst we invite the dog back into the
yeah.
podcast,
Sorry.
just don't describe anything with your hands again. You're going to get,
Yeah, I won't.
well, what would you recommend if people are then like, we've inspired them and they're like, oh wow, these dwarf fruit, and that's what these guys do. I mean, obviously do this stuff for the orchards too, but for the homeowners, okay, what's the tastiest stuff in your opinion? Like, what's the stuff they really should be going for?
You're right. This is a really subjective question. Um, I love peaches and nectarines fresh from the tree. They are gorgeous. They're so sugary, they're so sweet, they're really juicy. And they, they taste really good when they're warm. When you pick fruit off a tree, it's quite often warm if the sun's been on it. So
Yeah,
I
right.
really like
Yeah,
that experience. Another good one is, your little sugar plums, so your European plums.
yeah.
Very, very delicious. I mean, you do have to beat the birds to it. That is one problem. But if you've got nets, I mean,
Yeah.
you're laughing, and the flavor is unreal.
And what are typically people expecting years wise before? Well, I guess it depends on what size they buy it at, but how long before you're getting some decent fruit off these types of trees?
Peaches, nectarines, 2 years.
Oh, that's
Uh,
not too bad.
yeah, no, it's not bad at all. Plums, 3 to 4 years. I mean, you can get some fruits earlier, but if you let a young tree, hold on to its fruit, it can stunt the growth, and you know, you kind of want to sacrifice those few uh, fruits that aren't going to taste that good anyway. Well, they're not taste bad, but they're not going to be the best quality because the tree's not mature. And if you sacrifice them, you get more fruiting wood for when the tree's actually ready to produce fruit. And that means that, you'll get a good harvest a lot sooner. So, I mean, that's really important. Removing those tempting fruits. But like you say, people are impatient.
So, is it more important then to fertilize more when the tree is young? Would that encourage that period to happen quicker? Or at least you would have a bigger tree by the time it was ready to fruit? Or does it not matter that much?
Well, it, I mean, it's important to fertilize it in general, at both life stages. It's just that the tree will be using the nutrients that you're giving it in slightly different ways. So
Hmm.
if there's no fruit on the tree, it will just be concentrating all of the nutrients you're giving to it in vegetative growth. So,
Leaves,
whereas,
branches.
as soon as you've got fruit or flowers hanging on there, that's what the tree's concentrating on. It's not doing a lot of vegetative growth until either the fruit's harvested you're in a warmer season.
If I got a if I did a lot of vegetative growth in the beginning though, would that give me more spots to have fruit grow on?
Yes, yes, it
So
would.
and so it is worthwhile, I guess, to a certain degree to just love the
Yeah,
plant.
yeah,
And even though it's not giving you any fruit, to not forget
yeah,
about it because it's not actually providing you what you want it.
yeah. It's not like less important because it didn't produce fruit for you this year, because it'll
Yeah.
produce a lot of fruit for you next year if you look after it, and it'll be really, really worth it. But
Yeah.
I can also kind of understand the perspective of people going, well, life is short. I want to eat my fruit now, and so they leave on a couple of fruits on an apple tree or a pear tree, whatever, on a tree that's slightly too young. I mean, they still get a decent enough apple that makes them go, oh, hey, this was all worth it. And it might
Yeah.
motivate them to continue to look after the tree for next year. So that it sort of depends on what kind of person you are. Are you striving for perfection, or do you want do you want to be rewarded for, your harvest? Yeah, for your input into the fruit tree?
Do you have any maintenance or plant guides out there, or do any exist where people would be like, okay, I've bought this plant. This is when I
Yeah.
should fertilize. This is when I should do that. Tell us about them.
Yeah, we do on our website. I've created a lot of them.
What's
It's
the website?
plantnet.com.au.
Plant
So
Net.
you'll
I'll put them on the
find
screen.
that you'll find that for the deciduous fruit trees, a lot of the information is quite similar, because the general seasonal timing is about the same for all deciduous fruit trees. It's the, pruning shapes and I guess the ratios of some fruit trees, if you want the absolute best, the fertilizers are a little bit different, but not hugely so that a backyard gardener should really worry about it. But yeah,
Yeah. You guys do have a lot of stuff. Man, I'm on the
we have a lot
website
of
here for those like
information.
this. You
Yeah.
do have a lot of information. It's
A
hard to get it out there
huge,
sometimes.
it is really hard. And, a huge part of what we do is try to educate people. But as you say, I mean, there's a lot of people trying to say, tell people how to grow fruit trees, and it's, you know, generated by ChatGPT, or it's for the Northern Hemisphere. And so it doesn't really, the timings and things doesn't really apply to us. I mean, yeah, we know when spring is, but they'll say really
hmm
specific things like in May, do this. And it's not
Yep.
necessarily, you know, the same here.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I guess it wouldn't even be the same between northern and southern of Australia or eastern and western of Australia, you know?
No, because, there's certain parts of Australia don't really see a genuine autumn or spring. It's kind of more of a shoulder season, so it might only last for a few weeks. Um, you know,
Yeah. So I'm on the plantnet.com.au and I've clicked on Plant Claire and there's what, a dozen more articles and then heaps of gardening. I mean, there's way more than that. I'm just scrolling, probably too fast for anybody that should read watching the video. I'm just showing that there's all this sort of stuff there. Complete guide to growing cherries,
yeah.
growing apples at home, tips to success, an easy guide to growing pear trees, all that sort of stuff. And there's some videos. Are you in any of the videos?
Yes, I am.
Which
So you
which
can
one are
watch
you in?
me in so many
I'm gonna
places,
find it. Yes. Which one? Where am I looking for to find Emma?
many of them. You
Oh,
could
okay.
just go into onto our YouTube channel and you would see heaps of videos of me on there.
Okay, here we go. Going on YouTube, Plant Net, and I'm going to type in Emma and hope for the
If I were
best.
to if I were to suggest,
There we
anyone
go.
look at any, yeah, that's me. Hi.
Look at you go. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, what were you saying?
If I could suggest an article for anyone to read on the website, it would be the fertilizer guides. Um,
Okay,
yeah,
where's
because
that?
that's really interesting. And
Search
so if
fertilizer guide.
you scroll down a little bit.
Okay, following your instructions, I was typing search. Go down, down, down. Tell me where else to go.
Yeah, there. See the boxes that look different? Up there.
Oh, yes. Potted deciduous fruit tree fertilizer trials.
Yes.
Right. Okay, I click that. There we go. Oh, so you've got all your testing and everything on there.
Hmm.
That's cool.
And the results and the plan if you want to follow it.
You know what you're doing. That's a lot of content. There
Yeah.
you go. It's hard with making content sometimes than people,
Yeah.
like the internet
Getting the
doesn't
message
bless
out
you.
there.
And yeah, it's
Yeah.
different. There's two things making content, actually, people seeing it.
Yeah.
We talked before when we started recording how we've just had Tim from Tim the Lawnmower Man over, and he's very good at getting content out there. And he's made a video with him being silly pulling out a weed that's got 2 million views on Instagram, and here's Emma putting in months of work. and
I know, yeah. It's sometimes the content that people need to see is not what they want to see and not necessarily what
exactly,
they look up. And you try to catch them with, your catchy lines and things like that. Classic one
yeah,
is that one at the top in the middle, the best potting mix for blueberries. I just thought, it's not an
yep.
exaggeration. I mean, it genuinely is a really good mix, but a lot of people put, their catchy lines and it catches people.
You need something really controversial, but you got to thing is if it's too clickbaity, nobody ever
I grow a
clicks.
peach tree hydroponically.
Yes, yes. This article about hydroponic growing is a scam. Even that's not even good.
Yeah,
I mean, we need something. You need to put the word scam in there somewhere.
yeah,
But yeah, give Tim a call. Say, mate, what would you do? And he'd be like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not very expert at this, blah, blah. And then he'll post another thing out and get 2 billion views. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, yeah, you do.
yeah.
Yeah, duffer. Uh, you know? Oh, mate. But I guess when it's having talked to him a little bit about it, there is just an element where that people actually don't know what they're doing because some of it is just kind of luck in a sense, Anyways, that's the internet for us. Bloody internet. Anyways, instead of being grumpy about life, is there any other sort of resources, maybe not even your own, but people you follow. We talked about Phil Dudman. We've talked about Vasily.
Yeah.
Great Australian resources out there. Just
Yeah.
generally, who else comes to mind?
Daly's Fruit Tree Nursery. They're in New South Wales. Tas1 Trees in WA. Um,
Oh, there we go.
yeah, so there's lots of people out there.
Hmm.
Just trying to think of any others. But yeah,
Oh
there's
yeah,
lots of
we don't have to
Australians
list them
making
all.
heaps. Yeah. Dailies and
I,
Tas1. I think they've both got really good information. They've got some, interviews and podcasts. Sorry, that was my cat this time.
oh
Um,
my goodness,
I know, I've got
never
a
worked
zoo
with children
here.
or
I
animals, and
know.
here we go. You invite Emma on the podcast, and next thing I know, a toddler's got to walk in.
Yeah, yeah. Got a toddler here and a toddler on my desk. So sorry everyone for the background noise.
No, no worries. I mean, if people judge you for having bad, technical stuff, they've been judging me for 100 episodes because I'm rubbish at some of this stuff sometimes.
True, I've only
Um,
been here for one episode, so
exactly. I've stuffed up almost all of them, and then here you are. No, you'll be fine. Don't worry. Um, well, do you know what? I think we've covered that pretty good, and I did talk about I did say that we wanted to talk about what it would be like to really behind the scenes running these nurseries and the world there. But we're getting close to an hour and a half as it is right now, and maybe one day
yeah.
we'll get you on again
Yep.
and we can talk about that sort of stuff then. So, Emma, where do people find you on the interwebs?
So you can see all my stuff for PlantNet on the PlantNet website or any of the socials. So it's PlantNet_Australia on, I think it's YouTube and TikTok and places like that, or the website plantnet.com.au. You can see my Instagram where I do a lot of bushwalks and flower photography and general gardening stuff. It's called Swanie's Backyard, so you can look me up there if you're interested. But yeah, that's me on the internet.
There you go. Well, thanks for all your advice. And hopefully, when I'm around your area later this year on the tour, we can maybe do part 2 and talk about, because I feel like the small business community, unfortunately, we can't touch on today, but you guys kind of are small businesses or a group of
Yeah,
small businesses, right?
yes,
And a lot of people, they might get their plants and not understand the story behind what it really
yeah,
takes to get those plants. But I guess that's a separate podcast for another day. So thank
yeah.
you for coming on.
Thanks
And
for having me.
my pleasure. I learned quite a bit
Awesome,
actually.
awesome.
I think my biggest surprise was that the dwarf varieties are controlled by the rootstock.
Yeah,
I just thought it'd be the other way around. But anyways, people, follow Emma on the interwebs and PlantNet itself and support your local nurseries. And we will see you in the next podcast.
bye.
Hey guys, Shane here from Lawn Culture Australia. It is a lawn rewards club where you go in the draw to win both weekly and monthly prizes. Prizes consist of lawn care packs, cylinder mowers, rotary mowers, aerators, dethatchers and power equipment bundles. All things lawn care, all from reputable brands. It's not just about the prizes either. As well as the giveaways, you have access to partners discounts, personalised lawn education, invites to exclusive events, plus you'll be part of giving back to grassroots sports. This is not just for experienced lawn experts. Novice to fanatics, our club is for everyone. It's about getting outside and enjoying your lawn and being part of a supportive community. So come on, let's grow together. Join Lawn Culture Australia today.